So do you know much about Hinduism?
I know a little bit, yeah. Not as much as I know compared to Buddhism.
'Cause I was listening to the Bhagavad Gita. I never listened
Ah,
to it
yeah.
before. So I,
It's
start,
really
I
good.
started listening. Yeah, it is really good. Um, and I looked a bit into Hinduism. And the way I understand it, it's that you got the three main gods. You got Brahman, which is like the ultimate reality, and then and it can be divided into Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And um, if I understand it, Shiva is like the destroyer, and the way that I interpreted it, I don't know if this is correct, but is that people who worship Shiva are um, they try to seek enlightenment through destroying their illusions, essentially. And then with Vishnu, so Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu, but so, the way I understand it, he represents more like consciousness and time, and just I guess balance in the universe, the processes of the universe that cause it to be in balance. Um, so then, if I think about people that follow Shiva to reach enlightenment, I can understand that. But with Vishnu, it's a bit less clear to me how that leads to the same ultimate reality, basically. So I was wondering if you had any opinions about that.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I don't know as much about Hinduism. I do know I've read a lot of Vedanta, but yeah, Vedanta may not use these different allegories or metaphorical representations. But from my understanding, like Brahma's the originating force in the universe, creative, Vishnu's the preserver, and then Shiva's the destructive. So the famous quote uh that Oppenheimer made with the dropping of the atomic bomb was I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. And that was a Shiva quote. The actual quote, um I think the actual quote is I am time, the destroyer of worlds. So the nature of time, or the existence of duration, is the reason things have beginnings and endings. So it's similar to the Christian Trinity, that each of these three things is inseparable from each other. Like the act of creation, by the nature of having creation, there's preservation, and then there's destruction. So, but from the followers of the Shiva, like a really good Gita is called the Guru Gita as well. And the Guru Gita is um a teacher that I've learned from, named Mark Griffin, said that it was one of the primary texts for liberation. So you would recite the Guru Gita in the morning, in the ashram that he spent a few years in. And the Guru Gita explains that the Shiva is consciousness. So it takes what we consider allegorical figures, and superimposes them, or reveals them to be the nature of our actual field of experience. So Shiva would be another name for the absolute. And yeah, but specifically for the like that Shiva entails like practices that have to do with death. I don't really know much about that. I just know that Shiva's a general term for the absolute as well, just like Brahman or para Brahman would be. But I don't hear that used as much for the word Vishnu. So that is a point. Um, yeah, yeah, but how you would yeah, how you engage in the, preservation principle. I'm not completely sure on that one. You know, like what practices that would be. Because even the devotional or like the bhakti, yeah, actually the bhakti traditions are always like Krishna and Vishnu. So the life preserving yeah, that like that opening of the heart and that very powerful devotion is very much with the sects that worship Krishna and Vishnu. So yeah, emphasis on the generative force or the preservation of things and the universe.
Yeah, 'cause what I noticed was that Krishna talks about something called karma yoga, which basically just means, the way I understand it, it just means doing the right thing without any attachment to outcome, um, and while just while being devoted to the highest truth, I guess. And but this really actually reminded me of Zen Buddhism, where I think it's also one of the more important tenets is to also just focus on being very present and focused on your work.
Yeah,
So I thought that was an interesting similarity. Uh,
yeah, yeah, Um, karma yoga is the yoga of duty or worshiping God through service. So yeah, and that's tied. That's the interesting an interesting concept in the Gita is that it very much reveals an actual destiny or like a course of action that is being essentially designated for Arjuna by Krishna. And it's interesting because in most non-dual discourse, especially modern discourse, you'll often hear I've taught this many times that it doesn't actually matter what course of action you take. Like it ultimately doesn't matter and is irrelevant to realization. Um, but the message of the Gita is very much so that Arjuna was ordained with a specific course of action. And the whole drama was about how he was resisting his calling and he was resisting the course of action that was being given to him by Krishna or by God. So it's a different perspective on this notion of like right duty or what one yeah, the course of the unfolding of your destiny in time. Yeah, so like Vedic astrology, for example, Vedic astrology and then Chinese astrology, the I Ching, they both emphasize specific uh, uh, navigating outcomes, how to mitigate disastrous outcomes, and how to yeah basically change and shape fortune. Um, so that's why you have this whole puja tradition in Hinduism, right? You do offerings and different kinds of rites and rituals. All of that is about attempting to mold or shape fortune in favorable circumstances. So from the absolute view, or from the view of in realization, all of that is very much so rendered irrelevant. Why would you need to change conditions, right? But the paradox is very much that uh, they talked about a specific destiny and a specific unfolding for Arjuna and how he was to handle the war that he was in. So yeah, I think I've told people many times that there's a paradox between the ultimate truth that there's nothing that needs to be done and everything's already perfected, and the relative truth that you do have specific gifts that others or the world in a way would miss out on if you weren't to develop them, or there are specific capacities that in a way were really given to you. So
And
yeah, like I think, oh yeah,
um,
continue.
the way that I understand it, or the way that I interpreted it, is that so Arjun was given, he did have like this task before him, and he was resisting it. And I think there's a certain, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but the way I interpret it is that Krishna is saying that there's a certain natural way for things to unfold, um and also if you don't, so if you act on your desires, your personal desires, then you're not necessarily following the natural way because you have attachment to things. But I think what he meant is that inaction also comes from attachment. So if you drop
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
attachments, like that's why when you follow the natural way that things unfold. So then without attachments, you do take certain actions. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I like that's a very solid interpretation. Let me see, I think someone's microphone is on. Oh no, we're good. Yeah. Yeah, in action, if there's attachment or resistance behind it, is exactly what Krishna was attempting to get him to push through. So yeah, the Bhagavad Gita is actually a short text. It's not very long. If it's long, it's usually because of commentaries. The Gita itself is pretty short. It just lays out the limbs of yoga. It's really good. Yeah. Any other questions, everybody?
I'm curious to hear. Oh, sorry, train announcement. Yes. I'm curious to hear if your experiences of coming out of cessation have changed from what they first were. Like, is the experience developed?
Yeah. Well, the retreat was strange in that when I was going into cessation, or so was just doing the practice, or how would I put it? Um, Cessation is comparable to entering samadhi, right? So for like 3 days was just sitting in the hall with the other students at this retreat. And yeah, I think on the fourth day, the morning of the fourth day, I was like, okay, so I gotta get into this now. And so how I've done it before is I would do like a long sit, like 3 hours or 5 hours. The first time I ever had one, it was on a 6 hour sit. So the idea is you just sit there without moving for long enough, and eventually your enlightenment factors like equanimity and tranquility and all of that. They get strong enough for a cessation to occur. And anyone here, if they don't know what I'm talking about, so cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness is generally what it's called. So the term for it is Nirodha Samapati, and it's considered the pinnacle of Theravadan Buddhist samadhi states. So if you've ever heard of the jhanas, the jhanas are called gradual cessations. So they're like nine stages of cessation. First jhana, second, third, fourth. How it works is that when you experience the first one, the meditation's defined by a lot of bliss or happiness. They have specific characteristics, equanimity, and your mind is pretty immersed in those wholesome qualities. You usually use an object like loving kindness or mindfulness of breathing or mantra. So everyone here has experienced probably most of them. But if you didn't have the, definition for it or whatever, then it wasn't something you're concerned with. So in Buddhism, you gradually go through these levels of quieting the mind, essentially, and letting go, and having these factors of equanimity, tranquility, and immersion, bliss. Yeah, they all coalesce at different stages. When you get to the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th absorptions or jhanas, those are called the formless realms or the formless attainments. They're respectively the realm of infinite space, infinite consciousness, infinite nothingness, and then something called neither perception nor non-perception. When you get to neither perception or non-perception, you're basically on the edge. It feels like you're on the edge of consciousness, or like the edge of the line between consciousness and consciousness. It's a very strange and subtle state. So once you've gone through these stages, you hang out in the 8th jhana in this meditative dimension of really having let go. The mind is pretty quiet at that level. It's kind of dreamlike. And when this becomes stabilized, the mind experiences one of the 3 characteristics in Theravada Buddhism. So those are suffering, impermanence, and no self. And experiencing reality as one of these characteristics causes the mind to turn away from phenomena, like turn away from samsara, develop something called dispassion. And then equanimity becomes so strong and so mature, you just stop wanting anything. And the universe vanishes, everything vanishes. And when it vanishes, that's cessation. And by vanishing, I mean like literally consciousness vanishes. So there would be a break or a gap in your in the tape reel of your memories and perceptions. One moment you're there, you're still, everything's there, and then like the tape just breaks, and then you emerge out of it. So in that cessation, or in that breaking of the tape reel of experience, that can happen for microseconds, minutes, or hours. In the text, in the old commentaries, they say that it's possible to go into it for days. So I experienced that for the first time 2 years ago. And when the mind emerges from cessation, the idea is that it has touched the unconditioned. Has touched something that is beyond experience in a way. And because of that, when the mind emerges, they say the lower fetters are destroyed. So lower fetters means, I think it's attachment to rites and rituals, doubt in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, there's a couple other factors, but oh yeah, and self-view dies in that moment. So the notion that a self or an identity exists, or that even consciousness would be a self or identity. So that whole edifice gets broken, or is supposedly broken, when you emerge from this. So they consider it a lot of Theravada traditions, like the Mahasi tradition, and a significant degree of the Theravada tradition sees that as the attainment of the first stage of awakening. I don't think any of the path, I don't take any of the attainment stuff seriously anymore at this point, but it's still something that I'm able to go into. So I've gotten into cessation like probably 6 or 7 times. A couple of those times was from sleep. So like I was in an out of body experience, and then I was able to enter a cessation from the out of body state, which is actually quite easy, since there wasn't a barrier with the physical body or anything like that. But first time it happened, it was very, very pronounced. I mean, maybe some of you might not have heard the story because it happened so long ago, but yeah, one moment I'm sitting there in the hall and went through all these cycles of getting into these upper jhanas, and then falling out because of the pain in my shoulders is so unbearable. So you're like in this war of like, I told the meditation teacher on that retreat that I would sit for 6 hours without moving. So I had to, after telling him that I would. so it was just straight war. It was straight war for 6 hours with pain. Really, 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 really bad pain. And yeah, at some point, this immaculate cloud of equanimity just arose and brings you all the way up into the heights of neither perception or non-perception. And the suffering door, the suffering characteristic appeared, and I saw, my attachments, essentially at the time, my dad, my ex, and there was this inner calling or inner voice that was like, that just said, let them go. And so I did. So there's this moment where you say, or at least for me, I said goodbye to everything. And then like the whole field of experience just fell backwards. And this wasn't something that my mind was seeing, at that point. I actually started like tunneling backwards in perception, like as if an out of body experience or a DMT trip just started in that moment. It was like falling backwards at rapid speed. It was like a 9,000 foot drop. And then there's this feeling of being pulled up back to the ceiling. And yeah, the last form that I remember was a torus. Like one of the clearest thing, as clear as this, as clear as this conversation, that there's a torus. Torus is an energy formation that looks like a donut. So it's like a Fabian, can you explain what a torus is, a toroidal energy field?
The way I understand, it's like you said, it's just a donut shape, like just a circle with a circle going around it, I guess.
Yeah. So basically, the torus is like it's a donut shaped energy, but it's not like it's just it's not like there's a donut of light out there floating in space. It was just movement of energy that is shaped like a donut. Okay, so that's the last thing I see, and then bang, it all vanishes. And when the mind turned back on, it was like reality appeared as code, but instead of ones and zeros, like in the Matrix, that everything was made of these small golden gears. It's the only way I could put it. I mean, golden gears, golden discs, I don't know, but golden gears would be the most accurate. And I mean, literally, there was this: you die, everything goes offline, and then the next thing that happens is that there's this immense, like a superstring that's like the size of the sky, and full of these tiny spheres, and in those tiny spheres are these golden gears. And the mind zoomed in on one of them, and the gear was spinning, and then the mind body turned on. So mind body turns on, then self turns back on, right? Your memories and perceptual faculty turns back on. And I just found myself, in the chair, slumped over, actually. It was slumped over. And I don't know how much time had passed, but I initially didn't remember what had happened. So I had to do it's funny, when you go through this stuff, you discover like why certain stages are called things. Because in the stages of insight, they have this thing called the review step that happens right after fruition. And I was like, I don't really know if this is such a deep thing, why does there need to be a review, but there needs to be a review because it's so alien to ordinary consciousness that it may not be remembered upon emerging from it. I didn't remember it when I came out of it. I was like, I don't like what just happened. So I'm slept over. I'm like, what just happened? I went back and reviewed it. So I remembered saying goodbye to everyone and then falling, and then just like remembering a dream, like the whole memory clicks back in, remembered the torus, remembered going offline, everything disappearing, and then the superstring of dharma discs or whatever. And but yeah, so after I remembered that, then the mind exploded with the enlightenment factors. I mean, never felt that kind of power ever. Like suddenly your mind is a master meditator. It can put its attention on an object uninterruptedly for hours at a time without, it's just the capacities that open right after that are very inaccessible outside of this type of state, or outside of emerging from this type of state. Even now, like, right, even me in my ordinary state right now, I don't have the level of refinement that I do when I come out of that. So this happens, the mind explodes with the enlightenment factors. And because the mind was so refined, I was able to enter the past life knowledge and some of the super insights that are characteristic of Buddhism. So that was that. And then I entered cessation, like that same retreat, a couple more times. And then, to be honest, it just got too unstable. Yeah, it felt, if you're closing your eyes and you're appearing in other places, and it's a lot to handle. I get why it's not taught. Yeah, I didn't understand until it happened why some of these things are not talked about or not discussed. So that was my whole thing with cessation 2 years ago. And then I did one retreat where, I dedicated a retreat to it and then experienced it on the third day and, dropped it. But this particular retreat, it has changed. Or, I mean, it changed after entering it again. So on the fourth day, I'm in the meditation hall, and yeah, I had just tried a long sit, and failed. So I sat there. I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit here for like 5 hours and go to cessation. Because then once you touch it once, you're like good for a couple days. You're able to access it pretty easily. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this. Just sit long. I don't care how much pain I have to go through. As I'm sitting there at the 2 hour mark, and I was just like, God, the pain was starting to build up in my shoulders and in my body. And then like, I don't know, I wasn't mindful enough or something, and I kind of like moved too much. I moved too much, and then I was like, oh, like I broke the non-movement thing. So I just I just got up, and I was like, there has to be a better way. I was like, there has to be a better way than this, than to just like sit here and torture yourself until it happens. So so I go into the hall for the afternoon sits, and yeah, it just started to get very. It was like the eighth jhana type stuff was starting to happen while I was walking around. There's very specific visions in that state for me. It's very spacious. Like it's you see toruses and all this dimensional stuff like galaxies, and it's a lot of it. It's like 2001 Space Odyssey. Those are the kinds of images that start to appear in the mind as it unfolds. So at that stage, you just watch the mind continue to unfold, minute after minute, hour after hour, and yeah, the final vision was a succession of screens. So it's a term in Buddhism called the mind stream. That's one term. Another one is like mind moment to moment. So what I experienced in that state was that the mind, or individuated consciousness, to be clear, it appeared as a succession of screens. So like one moment was here, the next moment, and there was just black screens going out into space, into this white opaque space, and then I fell out of the stream of me. So I fell out, and as soon as you fall out, you really lose the sense of you lose the sense of vantage point. You lose the sense of subjectivity mostly. So self goes out the door, and yeah, it's right at that point, falling out of the stream of individuated consciousness, the body braces for death. So my heart started racing. Yeah, it feels like dying. So your heart races so fast. It races so fast that it turns, like, imagine your heart rate exploding to such a speed that it turns into a sound. And that sound is Om. So it's like, oh, and then there was, right at that point, you're supposed to go offline, right? Everything's supposed to go offline. That's always what happens. That's always what happened before. So you brace for just let go. You're gonna let go. You have to die, and you'll come out of it. You'll wake up on the other side. And right at the point where things were supposed to go offline, they didn't, which was insane. It was like entering this stream in the heart of reality or something. I mean, the infinity symbol, how it's this movement like this. There was just this movement. There wasn't perception, there wasn't memory, there wasn't self, there wasn't intention, there wasn't attention, there wasn't form, there was just this flow. And then the mind and the body emerged. and awareness hadn't turned on yet, but the mind and body emerged, and this, I don't know what to call it. I guess I would call it an unconditioned element, or some kind of uncompounded phenomena. But something arose in experience that I never touched before, or that it was never, it was something that was never experienced before. It wasn't form, it wasn't formless. Usually when we're talking about samadhi states, we're talking about things with discernible characteristics: void, spaciousness, black. Another one, like in my near-death experience, ocean of 10 billion suns, bliss, infinity, eternity. These are all characteristics that define these super states. The strange thing about this thing, as the only word I could use for it, was that it didn't have any of those qualities. It wasn't, I wouldn't say that it wasn't outside of reality or outside of consciousness, but I also wouldn't call it consciousness. It wasn't like sentient. It wasn't form, it wasn't formless, it wasn't light, it wasn't space, it wasn't here, it wasn't there, it didn't have dimensions, it didn't have qualities, but it was a thing. So there may be entire ranges of uncompounded or unconditioned phenomena that are experienced in these stages. There's all, the way that Theravada talks about it, or that a lot of traditions talk about it, they say like, there's one thing, there's one absolute, or there's one like deathless element or something. And we don't know if that's true at all. There could be entire ranges of uncompounded elements or unconditioned phenomena. And by that, I mean, they don't apply to the normal rules and characteristics of experience, even when I'm talking about samadhi and all of this type of stuff. Yeah, because it wasn't light in the same way that the clear light of death was, for example. I could only call it like purity. That's the best word for it would be purity. So the mind touches that, or the mind and body touched it unexpectedly. And I died. Yeah, this like clear light, an actual clear light descended, exploded in the room. I was severed from my body. And I couldn't tell if I was at the beginning of this incarnation or the beginning of the next one. The past and the present and the future collapsed. I couldn't tell if I was dead, alive, or insane. There was some kind of like scurrying of movement, and couldn't tell if your body was doing something that you didn't have control over. There was this fetus. There was this baby. So the thing was, was this the beginning of this life, or the start of the next? Was I getting a past life thing, or did I actually die and now I'm seeing the beginning of the next incarnation? Because that's how powerful that light was. Mark Griffin talked about it. He said the clear light of death, if you're not prepared for it, it will tear. You'll be completely shocked. It's powerful. So yeah, so that happened, and I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't prepared for it, and it rocked my world. Once that total disorientation happened, and the past, the present, and the future collapsed, the normal orientation that you have in space-time reality is gone. You can't tell what's here, what's there, what's then, what's now, what was. It all gets mashed up. Yeah. The body exploded in fear. I always talk about fearlessness, you know what I mean? Like I drink fear, I talk about fearlessness. Like I don't know, a few months ago, these supernatural beings appeared in the room, scared the crap out of me, right? I had to deal with that because it was like a physical thing. That was like nothing compared to what happened. Like the most terrifying moments of my life were minor compared to that one moment. They were like the tip of my the most fear I've ever known was like the tip of my finger in that moment when the clear light of when the clear light dawned after touching this, uncompounded element. Yeah, because once all of that went had opened up, I was like, oh, yeah, I can't tell if I'm dead or alive. And so yeah, the body braced for fear, things calmed down a bit. And I saw very clearly that there is a price to pay for access to those things, to those levels. Because once I touched that unconditioned element, I could sleep. I was sleeping in clear light the whole night. So I would close my eyes, fall asleep in total awareness, in clear light, without a body, without thought, without thinking, and then open my eyes and an hour would pass. And I was able to repeat that 7 times without fail. So in the Book of the Dead, if you can do that 7 times, you're guaranteed to be able to do it at death. So something that I was not able to do at all, really. I mean, I had clear light sleep, I don't know, a few times, but I never had it more. I never had it, never even close had it more than once in one night. It was like a few times over a decade of practicing, right? But now suddenly you touch this deathless element, this uncompounded element, and your mind can do things that are impossible for it to do ordinarily. So clear light 7 times. But the reason that it's possible is because that level or that strata of experience is initially unstable. It feels like every time you close your eyes, your mind is spinning from the inside. Every time you close your eyes, your sense of perception and feeling is spinning, literally spinning from the inside. And continuously, your mind feels drawn, inclined, and drawn like a magnet to cessation and to these unconditioned, more unconditioned or refined states. So I was entering the clear light sleep stuff like not because I wanted to, but just because that's what the mind was doing. Yeah, and then yeah. So the OBE stuff, usually you need, like, for example, now it's been a few days, right? So now if I want to go out of body, I'd have to wake up and meditate and then lay back down, right? And like go through the whole thing of falling asleep and using an exit target and all of this. When I touch that thing, I can close my eyes and within a few minutes, I'll be wherever I put my consciousness to. And consciousness will shut off here and it'll turn on somewhere else. The mainframe, another life, whatever. So the retreat showed me that kind of level of access, or that kind of level of power, has to be acclimated to. Yeah, I touched it once and then I knew I needed to wait a few days before doing it again, because it was just too. It's like sticking your finger in a cosmic electric socket or something. Your whole system feels fried. You can't sleep. So that night, the first night afterwards, I slept in clear light, but I didn't really sleep, you know, because there was no loss of consciousness. So there was no like shutting off and getting this regenerative thing that we call sleep. Your body just falls asleep, but then consciousness remains in this clear, dreamless sleep. So that was a big test, in the sense that I had to handle it and calm myself down, really. Yeah, your whole body feels different from the inside. Your whole body's vibrating. Different parts of your body are vibrating. Your chakras are vibrating. Different parts of your spine are making weird sensations. It's really like a whole territory of awakening that I had heard about, but never actually spent any significant amount of time in. Yeah. Yeah, so touch the thing, and then it's like dissolving into clear light, and continuously being drawn back into cessation. But then you try to hold it back because it feels like you're gonna fucking lose it, if you die a couple more times. So you try to stop, and yeah, I prayed to every single master I could think of that first night. Because yeah, I thought I was gonna go offline, and that I was just gonna come out of it and it was gonna be fine. That is not what happened at all. Yeah, I entered some stream at the heart of things, and that consciousness that is characteristic of of masters who have passed those things is what's there. So yeah, even stranger stuff happened, but talking about it just sounds too crazy. Just leave it at that. So that was that. So then it was kind of realized that the stuff with the study wasn't even about the study. It was about, like, I was basically set up to have a reason to meditate more, because I've been meditating like 6 hours a day for a month at this point. And if it wasn't for the study, I wouldn't have. So it was like a guidance, it's kind of like a guidance honeypot, where I was like, okay, we're gonna have this fall into your lap so you could go through these hoops and start to practice more again.
Ryan, this was recent?
Yeah, this happened like 5 days ago. Yeah.
Oh my word. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see, because I came off the retreat like 2 days ago, and then there's been a loss of steam. I'm not in retreat conditions, so might or might not be able to pull it off in the lab. But if I am able to pull it off in the lab, they should get markers that my body braces for death, or the brain undergoes some kind of very, very intense thing as a result of this. Yeah. Yeah, the whole physiology, whole system is different. But yeah, for whatever, I don't think, I know a lot of people who go into cessation, and that what I just told all of you is not something I've ever heard anyone else describe. So it's not like, if you meditate a lot, this is the kind of stuff that happens to you. I think it's kind of just what I what's in the cards for me. Yeah, and I went through cessations before, and it was fine. You know, nothing crazy like this happened, but it did this time, and it definitely. Yeah, I said during it, I said, of course, it's easy to talk about fearlessness, and then God will give you something to actually be afraid of. So I learned that firsthand. Yeah, I was humbled. I was humbled. If there is, if anything, if there are any words to capture this experience, it was I was humbled. So yeah. Yeah, James.
Yeah, Mark was saying that like that light of 10 billion suns, the great light at death is like a golden opportunity for enlightenment. But I mean, based on what you're saying, it's like kind of like good luck being able to, keep your bearings in that moment. It sounds like so beyond frightening that it's like, even though it sounds like an amazing opportunity, it's like probably just be so afraid, like everyone would be so afraid you can't keep it together.
Yeah, I think because if you listen to a lot of near death experience reports, this whole clear light thing is not described by most people who've had near death experiences. So it could be that it literally happens at the moment of death, and then their consciousness turns on and there's this amnesia thing. They just forget what occurred. That's a possibility. And the other possibility was that it may not be absolutely terrifying for everybody, you know. Because when I experienced the clear light of death in my actual NDE, it wasn't terrifying. Yeah, it wasn't terrifying. It was a lot after the fact. Like after the fact, there was this like realization of the immensity or intensity of what had just happened. But it wasn't like this actually it's hard to say because I feel like it was so intense at that time when I was 19 or 18 or whatever that like I had the realization that any fear would actually get me killed. So I just didn't permit that, you know? So like any degree of fear or and lack of focus and anything except like the pure resolve to survive. Anything but that meant I wasn't going to make it. This thing was going to kill me. So I had enough focus to push everything to the side, right? But the strange thing in this experience was that because the disorientation was so high and immediate, I was like caught off guard, you know. So I think that's why there's so much emphasis on like preparation in the Tibetan tradition, preparation for that moment. Because if you're told and you expect that this is going to happen, and you trained for it and you experienced a clear light of sleep and you did all this yoga, you're much more primed for, you know, any potential wildness that could happen. But in my case, there was no expectation that anything unusual was going to happen. Like really thought I was just going to get quiet, go offline, and then turn back on. And that was it, you know? So because of getting caught off guard, essentially, I had that reaction, had that response. Yeah. So Mark also said one thing though. He said that I remember him saying reality without a body can be so disorienting that you'll cling for a new one. I totally understood that in that moment. Because it wasn't like an OBE, you know. OBE out of body experiences are pretty navigatable. Even a lot of the psychedelic stuff is navigatable, you know. But when you have things like really major spatial and temporal distortions and collapses, it's difficult. Yeah, like I said, when I say I couldn't tell if I was dead or alive, I'm not joking. Like I'm not being metaphorical. I'm not being metaphorical. I'm being serious. I'm being literal. Like I went into cessation. I went into this thing. I came out. Couldn't tell if I was dead or alive. For real. So not being able to tell if you're dead or alive has some physiological effect. It's gonna do something to this system, you know. There's gonna be some fear. And yeah, that's what I had to deal with. So.
Yeah, he was saying it's so disorienting because like you were saying, like there's like no time, so you're like getting hit with all this stuff like all at once. And
Yeah, Mark did say that. That's correct. That's right. Yeah, he said it can be like your whole life happens in a flash. I think he talked about that, right?
yeah, he was also saying that like I mean the way he put it was like, you know, if you're able to practice that 100,000 times while you're alive, then you'll have like a better shot at that moment. So I don't know if you could say like if you experience that, you know, so many more times, maybe you would maybe the fear, maybe you would get acclimated to it. I mean, it's like maybe it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
first
exactly.
time you go out of body, it's like it lasts like 2 seconds, or your lucid dream lasts like 2 seconds because it's so novel. But yeah, maybe if you experience it a ton more times, maybe you'll be able to. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the sense of it. The sense of it was, this is temporary. You know, the reaction to this is temporary, and you'll experience this more times. And as you do, these they're basically samskaras, you know, or vasanas. So latent karmic formations. So the fear of death is something I've encountered before, and fear of madness too, like with psychedelics when I was younger. But yeah, I mean, this process or I mean, God awakening. You know, if you're saying that you want to be empty, they're gonna make sure you're real empty. Yeah, they're gonna make sure there's nothing left in there reacting, if that's what you're asking for. So obviously, I had a fear of madness that I had not acknowledged, and that was immediately what was put in my face. So it was like, yeah, and I've heard Hawkins talk about it too. I think he's David Hawkins in his awakening. He said he actually died. UG Krishnamurti also talked about actually dying. So, and I don't know if I doubt that that's the case for everybody, but it seems that some people have these major confrontations with attachments, you know. There's an attachment to coherence. There's an attachment to space-time. You know, space-time is safe. Things happening in a linear fashion is what makes sense and is what is navigatable. It's really a sense of okayness to be oriented in time. But when things aren't, it's something to get used to. And my take on it is this is kind of the function, you know, when people, I don't like using terms like deeper stages of awakening, but I don't know how else to put it, you know, when this type of stuff becomes characteristic of a meditator or a teacher's life, you begin to, the consciousness begins to function differently. And because the consciousness begins to function differently, functions in different planes, functions in different dimensions, there's training that has to occur and tests that have to occur to ensure that you'll be able to handle that. So you don't just get boom, like launched off into freaking, you know, into things that you can't, that you really can't handle. Yeah, it's kind of like, I call them the masters of reality, right? Or the lords of the universe. They'll like waterboard you for a little bit in something that you can't handle. And then they'll like pull you out and you're like, ah, you know, but it's not like they drown you to death, you know. They drown you just a little bit, you know. You shake it up a little, you know. Say, oh, you really think you're beyond fear? You really think you're fearless? Okay. Let's see, buddy. So I think like a week before that or something, I said I'm not afraid of anything. And then freaking 7 days later, I was shitting my pants at the meditation hall in the clear light, you know. So so there you go. There's your uh yeah, yeah. Let me see. Let me read a comment before we close up. If you post this, it's going to bother your mom. That's hilarious. Um, yeah, yeah, maybe I could post it. I could post it. I could post it after my, yeah, after my birthday, after the studies. Yeah, I'll post it, and I'll be back home, so that she won't. Yeah. Or I could tell her that that the whole thing was a dream. No, I wouldn't lie to her like that. But yeah, everybody. So next Wednesday, all good. We'll meet. And is there anything else? Yeah. So like, I wasn't actually sure if I was going to talk about this, about everything that I just said, but like Joe asked. I think if Joe didn't ask, or if someone didn't ask how the retreat went, I might have not talked about it at all. Um, yeah, I don't want you to think that how this has been for me is how it needs to be for you, or that because I have such like grandiose experiences that your understanding of awakening or your direct experience is somehow like insignificant or less. Because the defining realization and the only realization that actually matters is that every state and every experience is fundamentally the same thing. Yeah, it's all just the room of experience. And the danger with these states, the danger with even talking about them, to be honest, is that they become these golden statues for people. And you forget that every golden statue is just another object in the room of experience. It's just another chair, another armchair, or another bookshelf in, you know, in the mansion of reality. Like I said, I touched that unconditioned or uncompounded thing, and then suddenly all of this opened up, but there's no indication at all that that's that is some ultimate thing, or that an ultimate thing is singular. You know, there can be entire ranges of this inconceivable stuff, and none of it is even capable of being on a map, because it's outside of what you've experienced up to that point. Like, you have no reference for, you know, this level of infinity and beyond stuff. You know, when it happens to you, it happens, you'll see. But yeah, I don't think that, you know, yeah, it's easy when you hear stories like this from me that you feel like you're here and I'm like way, 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 way down the line, or way, way, way out there. And it's just not the case. I have these psychic supernormal abilities. I just do, you know. But that doesn't mean that it's related to the realization of this. It just means I have a specific job in the universe, and that may not be your job. But every job is happening in the same place. Yeah, it's all the same thing. Yeah, so don't think just because of the, you know, wild stories you hear from me, or the stuff you read in Autobiography of a Yogi or whatever, that don't think that it's something other than this. You know, just this has infinite faces. That's the point. You know, just this has infinite configurations. That's the liberation that frees. Because when you're caught in, you know, wanting things to be specific, or David just popped in. Yeah, when you're yeah, kind of the trap with meditation techniques and jhanas or samadhi states and special experiences that happen on plant medicine, is that it orients you towards experiences, you know, events that are happening. And because you're oriented, or because there's an orientation to experiences, and an experiencer that is undergoing them, we become subject to illusion. Yeah, it's seeing that all the experiences, everything that happens moment to moment, is within the same room, within the same field of experience. That larger understanding is what frees you from the fixation on events in time. It's what frees you from the fixation on experiences. It's what frees you on fixation at all, because you see that fixation is arising within this. You see the attachment, binding, craving, freedom, letting go, overcoming, dispassion, equanimity, whatever it is. Those are just things happening in this. Those are things happening in this is the first realization. The second realization is when it becomes very clear that like nothing's actually happening. And it's easy to say that, of course, when something really freaking intense is happening and you can't tell if you're dead or alive. You know, you can say nothing's happening all you want, but in that moment, will that be your realization? Will that be your reality? And that, if anything, is the reason to have this understanding and knowledge become so deep that it's at the bone marrow level, is how Zen talks about it. Yeah. There's never one moment that's more the present moment than another moment, right? There's never one experience or one reality that is actually more of an experience or more of a reality than another, even if they feel that way. But when they are perceived that way, it's just because the clarity, the bliss, these specific qualities make them feel that way. When you have an experience that's very meaningful, you feel like it's more real. You feel like it's more true. You feel like it's reality 2.0, or that it's the true reality and the reality you knew before is the false. You have to see that that's a perception. That's just a perception. If that perception was not there, you would not have that sense that it's more real, that it's more true, that it's more this. There is no more this. You never get more reality. You never get more immediacy. You get more perception of it, but you don't actually get more of the thing because it's not increasing or decreasing. Yeah, so in these super states, you come out of them and you're like, what? What? And you hear so many people say this on, they take 5-MeO or DMT or whatever, and they often say that was home. That was the true reality. That was the light. And this world of death is the shadow. Everything here is dead. Everything here is transitory. But that place, that thing, whatever it was, that was heaven. That was real. A lot of people say this in their near-death experiences as well. And it's because the faculties of perception in that state are different than the ones you have here. It's really that simple. Whatever is happening is conditioned by the factors or the whatever's happening in experience is conditioned by the constituents or the parts of that experience. So your sense, the experience of something being more real or being more true is directly related, is born of perception and feeling. If you don't have perception and feeling in those states, then you don't have the sense that it's more or less real because there's no perception and feeling. So, those aspects of the experiential field, they're not able to take a quantum leap in their refinement and sensitivity because they're not there. So the quantum leap in clarity and the quantum leap in bliss and the quantum leap in oneness is possible because there's structures and mechanisms in those states that allow that to happen, that allow that to be the case. The body of man is one body. The body of the heavenly being is a different body. It has different sense perceptions. It's not like this one. Why is it that in your physical body you're locked into one room in space-time? Is because you're in an animal body. When you're in a non-physical body made of light, you don't have that. You're not locked into one room in space-time. So it's a completely different kind of orientation. But just because those orientations are different and those experiences are different doesn't mean that it's something more than this. I think that's one of the dangers in a way of spiritual life, all of this stuff. You start to touch things that make this world feel dead. And if you're not careful, it'll be overlooked that that's conditioned by your perception and feeling. Yeah, I was actually supposed to talk about equanimity in this class. But we'll have to get to that on Wednesday. So I think we're good here, everybody. I went far over the hour, so. I'm gonna stop the recording.